By the time mid-season rolls around, almost every athlete is hitting the same wall. You're sore, you're tired, the schedule's packed, and suddenly you're just not hungry anymore. But here's the thing, appetite dropping mid-season isn't just an inconvenience. It's not just about, oh, I'm not hungry, so I don't need to eat as much. It's one of the biggest hidden performance killers out there. Today, I'm breaking down why this happens, what it does to your body if you don't fix it, and most importantly, how to fix it. Now, let's talk about why appetite drops. I want to normalize this because this is super common. I'm recording this in football season or at the start of football season, but I've seen it in softball, baseball, soccer, track. I've seen it in every sport. There are real reasons your appetite tanks during the season. Number one, stress and fatigue. Stress and fatigue blunt your hunger hormones. When you're constantly under stress from practices, games, school, the body's signals for hunger, which is ghrelin, gets suppressed. And so you need food, but your body is telling you you don't need to eat. It's not telling you like, "Oh, hey, I'm hungry," but you still need to eat. The schedule crunch is the other issue. I mean, you guys got lots of practices, multiple games, classes, travel, you guys are constantly going, and that leads to athletes skipping meals. You skip breakfast because you don't have time to make it, or you skip pre-workout like after school meal because you're going straight to practice, or your dinner's not ready when you get home, so maybe you don't have dinner until like 2 hours after your games or your practices. Then you've got the inflammation and soreness. This is one that people don't really talk about as much as, when your body's under stress, that inflammation, that soreness, that recovery requires energy, but soreness and inflammation can actually reduce your appetite. So when you think about you're constantly putting your body under stress, you are training, your body's trying to recover, it's sore. When you're sore, you may not be as hungry. And if you are mid-season right now or mid-season, here soon, you're going to be sore. You're going to be tired, and that can impact your appetite. That can impact how much you're taking in the day. So this can ultimately, lead to you just not having as much appetite. So appetite loss isn't your body saying, "Oh yeah, I don't need as much food right now. It's fine." It's your body saying, "I'm overwhelmed," and that's exactly when fuel is going to matter most. That is when your nutrition needs to be even more locked in. So what happens if you decide, well, it's fine, I'm not hungry, I'm just going to kind of keep doing what I'm doing. What happens? If you just go with the flow and you eat less because you're not hungry, you're digging yourself into a hole. So when you are in an energy deficit, when your calories in are not matching your calories out, you will start breaking down muscle. If you are not fueling, your body slowly breaks down lean muscle tissue just to keep up with the energy, just to try to survive. So that's just number one. That's just one major issue, which obviously we don't want muscle breakdown. One sign of that is if you're seeing yourself losing a lot of weight in season, that is a red flag that you are breaking down muscle, you are losing water stores. Yeah, you might be losing some fat as well, but you're definitely going to be losing muscle and losing water weight, which both impact your ability to perform. Number two issue, if you're going to ignore this, is slower recovery. You're going to be sore for multiple days. You're going to be more fatigued. And that is going to carry into the next practice or the next game. I have conversations with athletes all the time who talk about being sore all the time, being sore for multiple days after a practice. That is your body saying, you are not feeding me right. You are not giving me enough nutrition, enough hydration to keep up. And then number three, this one sometimes you don't care much about until it keeps you off the field. Your immune system, your sickness. If you are getting sick more mid-season, which many athletes do, that is a good chance that you are not getting enough nutrition. You're not getting enough hydration. And so if you're constantly under fueling, you are more likely to get sick. And that is going to put you in a position where you're not going to be on the field as much. You're not going to be on the court as much. You're going to miss opportunities to play simply because you're sick. So if you don't want to get sick, let's fix the nutrition. And then I think this is four, is your performance plateaus or even declines. So if you're losing muscle, if you don't have as much energy, if you are getting sick more often, if you're getting injured more often, then yeah, your performance is going to plateau or it's going to decline. and you're going to put yourself at higher risk for injury when you are breaking down muscle, when you are constantly low energy, when you're constantly putting your body in a deficit in what is called catabolism. Catabolism is when your body's just it's a breakdown processes. Your body's going to constantly catabolize, it's going to break down, and it's going to put you at much higher risk for injury if you're consistently not fueling it the way it needs to be fueled. So I've seen this all the time. I've got Boston, which I talked about in the last. He was struggling with recovery. He was sore for multiple days. He was not getting stronger. He was not getting leaner because he was not getting enough fuel, especially around his workouts, to actually allow him to perform and to recover the way he needed to. There's also Maddie. She was a basketball player that I worked with, and she would talk about wanting to take naps at the end of practices, like just being so fatigued, so tired that she was just ready to take a nap every day. Your body should not feel like that. It was a clear sign, and we saw it in her food log that she was not eating enough. And so we got her consistent with breakfast, getting her carbohydrates, getting her balanced meals throughout the day. And all of that went away, and she was able to perform the way that she wanted to. I've also seen it when I speak to teams. I still remember speaking to a softball team last year, and one of the girls talking about always being tired, always getting sick all the time. And I'm like, yeah, that's a sign that you're not eating enough, not eating enough of the right things. And this was the same girl was consuming probably 400 plus milligrams of caffeine a day. So instead of getting real energy, real nutrition, she was caffeinating up instead. So, a lot of you athletes out there are making this mistake of thinking that caffeine is your energy and then ignoring your nutrition so that you're constantly tired, constantly fatigued, constantly sick, never performing the way that you should, being sore all the time, getting injured more often, getting sick more, all the things. All you got to do is fix eating better, eat more, eat better, and you're going to be much better off. You're going to be less likely to have all these issues. So we really got to fix that. If you don't want to perform lousy, if you don't want to be mediocre, if you don't want to be average, then we've got to fix your fueling, especially mid-season, especially at the end of the seasons. This is where the body's most likely to break down, most likely to crash. So let's get into the fixes though. I love to give you guys an eye opener. I love to give you guys a why this matters, but I also want to give you guys some solutions here. So what do you do when you just don't feel like eating? Step one is liquid calories, protein smoothies, shakes, chocolate milks, things that are easy to drink, they're easy to digest. You can drink a liquid and an hour later, you could probably consume some more. You could also think about in a protein smoothie, yes, you get your protein. You could add some fats in there for some extra calories. You could add in a decent amount of carbohydrates in there, maybe even a little honey just to give you a little bit more of a boost. Like there's a lot of things you could add into that smoothie and make it a full on meal, full on snack, whatever, to allow you to get the nutrition you need. So just to give you an example, one of my athletes right now, he's a baseball player working out twice a day and he's trying to gain weight at the same time. And he was telling me, he's like, I just don't have much of an appetite right now. Like, I just don't feel like eating as much. And so we started adding in the protein smoothies, and I gave him like this 1,000 calorie smoothie recipe and he started doing those. And then he started doing this next strategy that we'll talk about. And he started getting stronger. He started being able to gain the weight that he wanted to gain. And it's going to allow him to play at a high level come fall ball here in just a few weeks. And so, smoothies, liquid calories can be a really good strategy to keep up your calorie intake. And then number two, if you don't feel like eating, if you get full easily or you're just not hungry, instead of just trying to force yourself to eat 3 big meals a day, spread it out. Again, my baseball player, what I had him do was he was even eating every 2 hours sometimes, just small, frequent things so that even though he didn't feel like eating, if he could just take in a little bit every 2, 3 hours, it made it a lot easier for him to keep his energy up. Maddie, we did the same thing with her. We ate more small, frequent meals. She didn't feel like she always thought that she had to eat big meals. And once we started working together, she's like, yeah, I just, smaller meals work. Like, I don't like big meals and the small meals work. And it allows her to keep her energy levels up and not be crashing halfway through practices, halfway through games, and really allow her to perform at a high level. So make sure that you guys do it every 2 to 3 hours, eat more often. It's a really easy strategy when you don't feel like eating to pack on calories. And then number three is energy dense foods. So, I mentioned the smoothies. You can turn smoothies into like 1,000 calorie meals. You can do Greek yogurt parfaits that are, 500 calories, 1,000 calories even, by adding a lot of things in there without that don't require a lot of effort. Like granola, not a whole lot of chewing going on there. Peanut butter, not a whole lot of chewing going on there. A lot easier to consume, a lot more calorie dense to get you what you need. For breakfast, if you don't want to have a big, heavy breakfast burrito, let's do overnight oats. Let's add some peanut butters or some other nut butters or seed butters or whatever. Let's add olive oil or avocado oil. Let's add some protein to it. Let's add fruit to it, maybe some honey. Like, let's make that thing calorie dense so that you can get what you need in a smaller volume. You could also do PB&Js. There are athletes who have gained weight just off of PB&Js. It's not the best choice to do all the time, but it does help accomplish the goal. Trail mix, another easy one. Nuts and seeds do require a little bit more chewing, a little bit more effort, but a lot of times trail mix, because they're calorie dense, can be an easy thing. Rice bowls, if you add a little olive oil, there's so many different ways that you can add in a lot of calories in small volumes. And carb timing. This is one that, again, athletes, y'all need to understand. If you're an endurance athlete, basketball, soccer, track, cross country, you're a football player, especially football players that play both sides of the ball. You guys need carbohydrates. And you especially need carbohydrates before workouts, after workouts, during workouts, especially longer workouts. So, like, that is going to be your most important fueling window. And so, if you can at least prioritize those carbohydrates around your workouts, you are going to be able to perform at a high level. And even if you don't have much of an appetite, it's going to be pretty easy to take in some of those things around your workouts and keep your energy levels up. And then lastly is hydration. A lot of times dehydration masks itself as no appetite. So be drinking water. Make sure that you're drinking water consistently throughout the day, not just at meals. Drink it in between meals, especially if you're like, I'm not eating enough. Let's get hydration in between meals so that you have room in your stomach for the. But again, the key here is don't just wait till you're hungry. If you're an athlete mid-season, chances are you're not going to be all that hungry. You might have to force feed yourself a little bit. Understand that you are eating for performance, not just for pleasure. You're eating to help you play at a high level, not just because the food tastes good or just because you're hungry. Your fuel is your training. Treat it like that. And this is really where mindset matters. Anybody can eat when they're hungry. Champions eat when it counts, when they don't feel like it. They eat because they know they've got to if they want to perform at a high level. Fueling in season isn't going to be always comfortable. It's going to require some discipline, some discomfort. But ultimately, fueling in season is about being clutch. It's about showing up with energy and with focus when others are crashing. The reason why so many athletes crash mid-season, late season, etc., or they get injured is because their body is breaking down. So if you can get the right amount of nutrition, you're getting enough calories, enough total like food in the day, you're going to be less likely to crash, less likely to be injured, less likely to be sore, all the things. So when your appetite's low, that's not an excuse to not eat. That's your moment to be disciplined. That's your moment to be like, yeah, it's going to be hard, but I'm going to figure out a way. It's the athletes who master this part, fueling through the grind, fueling through the lack of hunger, who are going to separate themselves down the stretch. They are the athletes like Michael Jordan, LeBron, Otani, all these guys who can play at Serena Williams, sorry to include some women, that can play at a high level game after game after game, playoff after playoff after playoff. So make sure that you are addressing this if you want to perform at a high level, even late in the season, even into the playoffs. So if you're listening and thinking, yeah, that's me right now, take action. Pick one strategy. Maybe you're going to start doing a daily protein smoothie. Maybe it's adding some snacks to your bag so that you're stacking throughout the day. Maybe it's making sure you're getting the carbs pre and post workout. Appetite dropping mid-season doesn't mean you need to eat less. It means you need better strategies. You need smarter strategies. The athletes who get this right, they are the ones who are not simply going to survive the season. They're going to dominate. They're going to thrive even in week 10 or even in the playoffs. They're going to play at a high level because they know how to fuel. They know how to get what they need to perform at a high level. So again, if you guys need help with this, reach out to me. I've got resources. I've also got coaching. So whether you need free stuff, paid stuff, whatever, like I'm here to help. But make sure that you guys are taking this seriously. Make sure that if you don't want to regret your decisions, if you don't want to limit your potential, if you don't want to look back 5 years from now and be like, man, if I would have done this thing, I might have played college ball. If I would have done this thing, I might have gone to this college instead of this college. Do you want to live like that? Do you want to live in regret? Then make better decisions. Yes, make better decisions in your training and your mindset and your grades and all of that, but make better decisions with your nutrition. Otherwise, you will look at it 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, and realize, man, I had so much more gas in the tank. I could have gone so much further, but I chose not to take things seriously. I talk to coaches all the time who say this. They're like, man, if I would have known this about nutrition, I maybe would have done this. I maybe would have gone to this college, or I may have gone to college at all, And so really think about that. Like, do you want to regret not making this decision, not changing? So remember that. If you guys found this episode helpful, you guys have teammates who are crashing mid-season, who are feeling gassed, who are not going to be who do not play at a high level late in the season. Make sure you share this with them. Make sure that you're like, hey, tag them in this video, tag them in, like send this over to them so that they can get this information so that they don't make the same mistakes. And then make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you guys leave a review, because that is how this is going to reach more athletes. That is how we're going to allow more athletes to reach their full potential. My mission is to impact 1 million youth lives. One of those routes is through this podcast. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. As always, keep striving for greatness.